We've got another one from Amit here. So Amit and others apparently. So there's a few people have asked pretty similar questions. So how can we find things like bank possessed properties getting sold in the market? There are some property gurus claiming that they purchase the bank possessed properties which are not accessible to the open market. Is this truly possible or just another myth? Or what about off markets, deceased estates, divorce sales, distress sales? Do you get access to these? How often do they occur? How can you take advantage of them, etc.? So I guess firstly, a little bit of humor in here, but a lot of that spin. We got Shane and Murali in there as well. There's a lot of marketing spin from a lot of buyers agents in the space when they start talking about all these indicators. For me, when I start seeing agents start pressing, deceased estate, bank possession, all we do is off markets, distress sales, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That for me is basically paper macheing over the cracks of a poorly led. It's just a marketing driven business, such as sales driven business. It's not a business that's driven really on data and actually foresight. I mean, in terms of people who maybe are following along, not really understanding what we're talking. So a mortgagee sale is essentially somebody who's defaulted on their mortgage. They haven't been able to make their payments. And that's when the lender essentially steps in there and looks to recover their debt. And typically it's a last resort, right? Because they'll go through lots of processes to try and avoid that actually occurring. In terms of off markets, what you'll find from off markets, a couple of things either happen here. Either, and I won't name names of buyers agents, but they've been caught out before. They've been on media outlets or they've been caught out before. Some buyers agents out there literally have the hands in the pocket with the real estate agency or have part ownership in the real estate agency. So that's how they're getting actually access to these pre-market opportunities or off-market opportunities. So ethically, there's some questions to be asked there as well. A lot of the time, these pre-market or off-market opportunities are pre-market opportunities that are available to essentially anybody who's reaching out to the agent. So they will text, email a mass amount of people. Like I get them probably a couple dozen a week on my personal phone or in my inbox, where it'll just be like, it'll literally say, it won't say hi Julian, it'll say hi buyers agents or hey investor, and they'll just share that to everybody. And what it'll typically be, it'll be somebody who is either going to take that property to market anyway. And what that means is, they're prepping to, tidy up the house, do the maintenance items, make sure it's all ready and nice for photos. The agent's thinking, I don't want to do 3 or 4 weeks of open homes. So he goes, takes his photos. You're not the only one looking at these photos. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of buyers agents looking at them as well, or other investors who are kind of DIYing it. And then they're just kind of fishing to see who's going to give them the best price and just go from there. So it's not really a true off market. It's essentially a pre-market. The other one can be that the other one that comes from the rent roll. So what you'll typically find is as well is these guys have a rent roll or property management arm to the business, and they're going through each and every one of their rent roll and asking the vendor, oh look, we think we might be able to achieve A, B, and C price. Would you be interested to sell? And they go, well, I don't really want to take it to market. I don't want to waste time on marketing fees. I don't want to waste time on getting an auction done and all that kind of stuff. Look, they spit out a silly price and look, if you can get me that, I'll look to go. And then what happens, there are plenty of suckers out there that they are buying these off-market properties and they're actually paying a premium, but they walk away, they're feeling like they're this absolute guru, this seasoned investor, because they've been able to source their property off-market or pre-market. So really, really deceptive. It's kind of really, in general, where it's 2025 now, getting access to property pricing, whether it be through multiple AVMs out there, through your banks, through real estate agents, etc. No one is selling their property at a crazy, crazy low price. That's just number one, right? There's too many checks and balances for that to happen. Now, you could argue that yes, you might have less competition to deal with, or you can maybe do it at your own pace. So it's not a crazy frantic, hey, we've had the open, I need this offer signed by Sunday, otherwise, so you might have a little bit more control there, but you're still competing with others. And I guess in terms of going back to in terms of deceased states and mortgagees, so in terms of in Australia, it is a tiny, tiny percentage of homes. And in terms of how common they are, like, we are a fairly strong economy. So it's quite rare that this happens. When it does happen, it's typically going to happen off the back of, really high interest rates, or when, when there's spikes of unemployment or housing prices fall dramatically. Another time it can happen, and where it typically does tend to happen, is areas with a lot of new home builds or off the plans, because what typically tends to happen there, they may have bought the place, they bought the $300,000 block of land, they spent $700,000, building the property out. So they've spent, $900,000 to $1 million on the property, but the property is actually only really worth $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. Then they, get made redundant, relationship breaks up, whatever it might be. So they're actually at a negative equity point, and then they're trying to scrape and claw to actually to work their way back. And I guess where they typically tend to happen is low socio areas, like I said, areas where properties prices are falling or there's overbuilt or high supply. And so some examples of that across the country are going to be your places like Mount Druitt, Campbelltown, Liverpool. In Victoria, it's going to be like your Craigieburn, Tarneet, Wyndham Vale, lots of builds out there. In Queensland, like your Logan, your Ipswich, your Cabooltures, and in Perth, your WA, in your Armidales and Baldivis, so and outer suburbs, right? So that's going to be where it's going to happen. But typically also what you're going to find, they're probably going to be in pockets as well, which have crazy amount of renters, crazy amount of public housing. Like they're in low socio pockets, which for us are low demand, low interest for us to buy. So it is absolutely a lot of marketing spin, a lot of bullshit, because they just quite frankly aren't the buyer's agent that you probably want by your side to be able to get your results kind of shorter, medium, longer term. So they just use this kind of flash in the pan sales tactics to actually get you to go down that pathway, right? So, but thanks for flicking that one through a bit and others. We'll get into the next question. I hope that one answers your question there as well.